All right, hello students. I hope you can hear me and I hope you can hear my dog Jessie. Okay, go. All right, so today's lecture is going to be about all the populations, and what I'm going to do is tell you what goals a music therapist would use with that population and a list of special considerations. So you're going to need a notebook. This is not in your book nor your course packet. So get your notebook out and I'm going to go through the beginning of these populations that we started from the second half of the semester. So the first population would be people that have cognitive challenges, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. The goals, this is unique because for music therapy, working with someone with a cognitive intellectual challenge, we would actually work on all of the goals. Go through those. Communication, because they have challenges with their receptive skills. So again, receptive skills means how well you process the information that's been given you, that you understand it. And when we talked about that population, remember, a lot of times they have a hard time retrieving information that they've been given. So we'll work on communication, and it can also be expressive as well, just learning new ways to communicate things. Academic. With this population, though, it's not going to be about becoming a better student, but their academic skills are going to be more about community usage, self-help skills, recognizing exit signs, recognizing fire drill plans, recognizing how to give change, get proper change back, street signs. That would be under academics. It's more about daily living skills and self-help skills. Next goal, motor. With this population, there really is nothing wrong motor-wise at all, but they could be challenged because they don't generally have as many opportunities to be physically active. This child may not really be always invited for the neighborhood game of tag. A lot of times they don't have as many opportunities, but they really have few inhibitions that they would really be willing to be dancing or drumming or doing motor movement games in a music therapy session. Another goal would be emotions, a lot of times identifying and expressing appropriate emotions. Leisure skills for sure with this population. This population, again, this is a disorder that you have for the rest of your life. Once you have it forever. And think about all the time you might have on your hands. Many of them do have jobs, especially those that are mildly challenged, could be working. So same with someone that's moderately challenged. But in their spare time, they still need something to do. So helping them learn instruments, helping them be songwriters, leisure skills, or even dance, choreography. And then social skills as well. This is a population that a lot of times people might think, wow, they weren't aware of social boundaries, personal space. So again, though they would actually be able to learn from all of the goals incorporated in a music therapy session. Next little list, put down special considerations. And the reason I'm going through all this is on your final, you might see a list of special considerations and you need to tell me what population am I talking about. So special considerations for those that have intellectual or cognitive challenges. 1, directions should be given at a slower rate. So directions at a slower rate in small steps and repeat often. It's just the way it is. That's something to keep in mind. Also, another special consideration, the music and the activities should be age appropriate, but let's think about this population. This might be a 35-year-old man with an IQ of a second grader. So when we say age appropriate for this population, we really mean their functioning age. So when we plan activities, it will be according to their functioning, their adaptive functioning skills, not their biological age. Another special consideration is really all of those goals are for community usage, so that someone with these challenges will able to successfully be out in the community and doing things, going to a coffee shop, going to the movies, going to listen to live music. And then the final special consideration is this is a population that needs to be active. They need active therapy. So they should be making music. If you're going to teach them their address, it should be something like they are playing the cymbal on the house numbers, and then maybe on the street numbers they're stomping. So they're learning in very active ways. This is a population that if they go up and hug a stranger, you don't really say, let's sit down and talk about why we don't hug strangers. But rather, if there's a song that talks about that, that song can cue them without maybe a parent or a caregiver really losing their patient, because this population requires a lot of cues. So instead having songs that would cue them about appropriate distance or what to do if you meet a stranger. All right. Next population, those that have learning disorders. So in your notebook, learning disorders. If a music therapist were seeing someone with a learning disorder, the goals they would work on. 1, academics, and it really is what they are learning in school. Music therapists have unique ways of reaching academic goals. Even if it's math, even if it's handwriting, there actually are quite a lot of curriculums for music therapists that help with these learning disorders. So academic skills, another goal area would be emotions, because someone with a learning disorder is probably dealing with a lot of frustration or poor self-esteem or even hyperactivity. And then the final goal area would be working on social skills, because this is a person who maybe shies away from social settings or they become the class clown. So again, just helping them feel good about themselves and that they can participate socially. Special considerations for those with learning disorders. Make your list. This person needs a structured environment, few distractions, they need time to process, and most importantly, the special consideration, and this is a test question, is this population needs a multi-sensory approach to learning. Multi-sensory approach. Well, music is multi-sensory. Not everyone learns the same way. So again, incorporating music. You can actually learn the times table through a song, even through passing things, playing drums, so that they can learn differently. Even working with reading disorders, dysgraphia, all those that we had listed a couple weeks ago. Special considerations for those with learning disorders. Let me just recap. Structured environment, minimize distractions, allow time to process, and they need a multi-sensory approach to learning. All right, next population would be, and this was a chapter in your book I assigned for you to read, and that is children and adults with mental disorders. If a music therapist were working with this population, the main goals would be 1, communication. A lot of times the communication is just allowing them the freedom to speak and talk and communicate in a stress-free environment. Another goal area would be emotions. So this person might need a safe environment that they can express their emotions or learn how to express their emotions appropriately. And then this population also needs to work on leisure skills, because people that have possibly illogical thought patterns, if they are given too much time on their hands, those illogical thought processes can just really consume someone's thinking, anxiety and depression can then also come right on in. So if this person has a healthy leisure skill, it could be learning an instrument, writing songs, listening to music, can be making instruments, can be dancing. So again, the goals, communication, emotions, and leisure are main ones. I didn't talk about this population. Hopefully you read it in your chapter. But there are people that have conduct disorder. If they're adolescents, they might be in a juvenile detention hall. If they're an adult, they could be in a jail setting. And it is actually better for us to figure out people that have conduct disorders at a younger age, because then we can have teachers, caseworkers, social workers all aware of the issue. The problem becomes escalated if it is not noticed, and then they become an adult with more resources. There are adults with conduct disorder that have skirted the eyes of anyone in their maybe high school years or middle school years, and now they're an adult. They have money, they have a car, they have homes, and you'll find that this person, with all their resources, is really harder to give a diagnosis to an adult with a conduct disorder rather than an adolescent. Anyways, what I was getting to is conduct disorder. If they're in a detention hall or a jail setting, those places will tell a music therapist, do not work on social skills. Do not work on social skills. And that is because when people are in a detention hall or a jail setting and they have conduct disorder, then what you're doing is, if you're trying to work on social skills amongst each other, you're really just adding to their resources. So that when they get out of jail, they know so-and-so in Terre Haute, they know someone in Logansport. It's basically don't work on social skills for that area. Anyways, I just want to mention that. Special considerations. Thank you, Jessie. Special considerations for those with mental disorders. They need a safe, structured environment. Why? They need to feel safe. They need to feel also structured. There's not a lot of surprises. This is a person that, another special consideration, you must emphasize their positives, build on their strengths. If this person doesn't feel good about themselves, they're not going to want to make a lot of changes. They're just going to have that attitude of, well, this is just the way it is. So again, building on their positives, build on their strengths. Another consideration, though, is still having firm boundaries and discipline, few distractions, and also boosting their self-esteem. This is a tricky population. This is the population least likely to go to therapy. Usually they don't go to therapy unless it's really affecting family, or if they've lost their family or they lost their job, then they might be more apt to go to therapy. But once they go to therapy, this is the population most likely not to return to therapy. So you see why it's important to build on their self-esteem, boost their positive thinking, and really make your sessions based around their strengths. And then you're also going to be working on goal areas. Okay. Making sure I have all that. All right, next population. Those that were on the autistic spectrum. So the goal areas for someone on the autistic spectrum would be communications. This is a person who, remember, the spectrum is varied, so it doesn't mean everyone with autism, but they could have a challenge with communication. So communication would be on that list of goals. Emotions, remember, this is a person that maybe doesn't really respond to emotions the same way that everyone else does, might not even portray emotions the same way that most people do. So again, working on emotions. And then social skills. So again, just how to be in a group setting, and believe it or not, I don't know if there still exists, but there are actual social groups for people that have autism, because a lot of times they are social, but they might have more concrete ways of being. Remember in that lecture we talked about more about facts and things. Small talk might not be a priority. And again, it's a spectrum. So I'm not saying this is true of everyone, but it can be typical for many people. Special considerations. This is a population that needs structure and consistency. When in music therapy, they need to alternate between a preferred activity and a challenging activity, because again, could get frustrated if you start the session with the hardest part going right to the heart of their goal. They a lot of times might take a little bit more time just to get used to the idea of being in music therapy. Remember, perseveration is prevalent with this population. So you want to start with something that they find pleasing and enjoyable, that they can take part in, and then go to something challenging, and then flip right back to something enjoyable to keep them involved. Also, you need to prepare the client for any changes in routine. And then the final one, especially for music therapy, I had mentioned sensitivities. All their sensories could be challenged. Being aware of sound sensitivity. So the instruments that we use could make someone become very agitated. They might not like the sound. So just being aware of that. I know I'm speaking quickly. Let me just go over that because I can't see people writing notes. Special considerations with autism. They need structure, consistency, predictability, alternate between a preferred activity and a challenging activity. Make sure you prepare them for changes in the routine and be aware of sound sensitivities. Next population would be those that are severely or have multiple challenges. I had mentioned there's really only one goal for this population, and that is social involvement. And that means you spending the time to find out what can they do, what do they enjoy doing, and then make sure they can do that in any opportunity. So the special considerations I had already mentioned in a lecture. I'll just cover some of them. Treating the client with dignity and respect. Give them time to process, and make sure you adapt to them. Adapt the instruments, adapt height-wise. If they're down low, get down low. So that was in a lecture already. The elderly, I think I mentioned some of their goals. The elderly have so many divisions, but overall, they would need goals, especially for the well elderly, would be to incorporate academic skills, new skills. But for the elderly that maybe have some memory challenges, you're going to work on cognitive skills, helping them recall what they already have known. And then also working on motor skills, because again, if you don't use it, you lose it. So some kind of movement, something for the brain, and then always social, because we're social beings. So those are the three main goals. And then the final population were those that were terminally ill. And I basically just in that lecture just told you what some of the special considerations are based on those characteristics: physical needs, psychological needs, social needs, spiritual need. That was in your lecture. And those are pretty much like your goals and working on the Kubler-Ross stage. So whatever Kubler-Ross stage you're on, boom, that's your goal. But the special considerations for this population, and this is kind of a lengthy list, and this is our final portion of this lecture. Special consideration for someone that's terminally ill is having flexibility. That's essential to this population. Flexibility and understanding which Kubler-Ross stage they may be dealing with, and flexibility, and that your session cannot just be every Monday at 5 o'clock. It's gonna be changing based on how the person is feeling, maybe based on family visits. When you go to your sessions, you might have 8 people in your session, or you might have the person by themselves. So being flexible to all of that. Another consideration is knowing that you're gonna be confronting death, conversations, confronting death with terminally ill people and their caregivers, being able to have those conversations. Special consideration, focus on supporting and encouraging the patient. Maybe I did mention this in a lecture, sorry. Supporting the patient, being aware of family issues that cannot be solved right now, yet that does happen. I always have to gear people to that can't be solved right now. Let's make sure we're focusing on the loved one. Being sensitive about families with different religious beliefs, different cultural beliefs about death and dying, and then of course always providing support and care for the family members after a loved one has passed away. So there you have it. I hope you're feeling blessed.